Welcome to Creators Cafe. I'm your host, Jessica Payne. I'm a performer, performance coach, and multi-hyphenate creator. I'm going to be bringing you conversations with some of my favorite creators where we talk about the sublime and the specifics of the creative journey. So grab a drink, get cozy. Let's go. My guest, Kyle deTarnowsky, is a musician of all kinds. He's a composer, arranger, orchestrator, music director, and instrumentalist. Kyle has worked on music that has been featured on TV shows such as Lost, Nashville, the Academy Awards, and such delightful titles as Cats and Dogs, The Revenge of Kitty Galore, and Go West, Happy Cow. Oh, also the Academy Awards, if you missed that part. He's a music director and plays for cabarets and music theater shows all around Los Angeles. He's a talented composer who works regularly in short films, and I was lucky enough to have him compose the Creators Cafe theme music. When he's not in rehearsal or teaching at one of the 2 colleges he teaches at, Kyle can be found composing his original musical Murder, She Wrote, based on the Angela Lansbury TV series. He is as delightful as his projects make him sound. My dear friend, Kyle deTarnowsky. Welcome.
Thank you.
Kyle deTarnowsky to Creators Cafe. Cheers.
Cheers.
Woo. What are you drinking today?
Thank you for having me. I am having a delightful chai latte thing that you got from
Tartine.
That's right, Tartine Sycamore.
Yeah, it's so good.
Delicious.
They're very sweet there, and the bread and pastries and coffee.
I mean,
delicious.
what's not to like?
So good.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay, so my friend,
Yes.
how do you think of yourself as a creator? Like all of the, just like kind of what order of your multi-hyphenates do you put it in?
Well, so first and foremost, I guess I'll just say that I'm a musician. Mm-hmm. So all of it, everything that I do, I think boils down to just music. And music is part of my essence. It's in my being, my soul, if you will. And I could wax poetic about music and
I actually want you to, but we're going to come back to it.
I was going to say,
I do want you to. That sounds
fantastic.
beautiful.
Well, I started out playing piano. That was the first thing that I did with any sort of quote-unquote seriousness. Mm-hmm. But what I do now is I'm a composer, a pianist, a music director, an educator, and I've also done work in arranging, orchestrating, conducting, in the area of music preparation. So a lot of fields within music.
Yeah, okay. You told me some stories about going to music lessons on the back of your dad's motorcycle.
That happened once, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I just love that image. That's so fun to me.
It was great. Yeah, I was in high school at that point, studying piano pretty seriously, and my mom usually came and picked me up. She worked, her office was close to where my teacher was, and this is before I had a license for my car. Well, a car that my parents had very generously gave me. It was not my car. But yeah, Dad came to pick me up at one point, and I think he had probably newly gotten his motorcycle, and he was ecstatic about it. And he showed up with a helmet for me, and the teacher, she always peeked her head out behind the curtain just to see who was there, and she saw his bike, and she was like, "Be careful." And I thought I was being so chill and calm about the whole thing, holding on to him behind going on the highway and, whatever. And we got home and he was like, "You were holding on so tight." And I said, "Oh, I thought I was just like being cool and casual." And he was like, "No, you weren't." And I went, "Well, crap, sorry." But
that's so funny.
It was great. It was a good time.
What was the thing that pulled you into piano specifically first? Was it just you had one at the house, or was there something?
I think so. Yeah, we had an upright piano when I was a kid that my parents had for, I believe, some time. And my mom was a pianist. Initially, she went to college to be a pianist, and that lasted, I think, 1 semester. Mm-hmm. She took some theory, and she was like, "This is not for me. I just want to play piano." So anyway, she taught me for a year when I was, I think, 7. and I was interested in continuing, so I went on with somebody else, and that was it. But I would always, I think because the piano was there, I would always play around with it and try to figure out things that I had heard either from movies or songs on the radio or whatever. So there was always that tool of expression.
I love that because I actually went to undergrad for music first
Yeah.
as an oboist and a singer. And I found that sometimes the kind of rigor, but also kind of traditional structure
Sure.
of classical music kept me out of that kind of true expression. And so, like, I, like your mom, was like just getting stuck in, you know, high level theory classes and learning about things that I respected, but just didn't speak
Wasn't
to
what
me
you wanted to.
artistically
Sure.
and didn't feel like a true expression for me. That felt like I spent so much of my time in that arena that I wound up swinging to other directions that I love and I'm very happy with. But it's always interesting to me to hear how somebody that is so talented classically like you are also has a true connection through that self-expression in modern music as well. That's always something that's fascinated me, is because so many training programs are so classically oriented. How do you, as a modern musician who loves pop music and classic music and, you know, movie composition and things like that, how do you kind of navigate a system that's built on canonical classics when you also have these other loves?
Well, I think for me it was one step in the process of my education as a musician, and I mean education in the most broad sense of the term. It was. It wasn't exclusive. It wasn't mutually exclusive with anything else that I was pursuing or interested in musically. I was interested in composers like Tchaikovsky and Debussy and Chopin and others, but I also simultaneously had interest in all these things that you just mentioned. So I didn't feel constricted or stifled in any way by it. I learned about this and I could apply some of this to that or some of that to this, and it was one piece of many in the steps that continue to this day.
Excellent. So it all just kind of fed into each other really well. Good.
And I will say that I was lucky in my college experience, my undergraduate experience, that I, for the most part, and certainly with my primary composition professor, I'm happy to say, there was no issue with the music that I was interested in writing, or there was no, well, you have to write quote unquote classical music, or you have to write music that is in this style or this vein or with this technique or etc. It was, there were no issues there. So it was, and I could pursue other things while I was there as well. I did musical theater pit work, and I studied film scores all day when I was not in classes, and I, jazz and all the rest of it with friends, and so there was opportunity for all of it. It never felt constricting.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you...
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it totally does.
Right.
It does. Yeah, because I think I wasn't able to navigate that successfully, and that's something I think I still am always trying to do. And so, and like when I am working with people who are interested in a subject, I try to kind of blend that. Like, here's some important classics, but also here's some traditional things, but also what are you interested in? So you get a blend of both. So I think that.
It's also, sorry.
No, yeah, I think that area is interesting to me, especially as we kind of relook at what are classics, who is celebrated, and try to bring in new voices. I think the music world is ripe for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So yeah, just anything you think about that.
Well, I was going to say a moment ago, the only other thing is that I also, just because I have such a variety of interests, it never occurred to me to exclude anything else or to shy away from other styles or genres or musical interests that I have in that classical quasi-conservatory setting. So
yeah. That's great. You just didn't limit yourself, and you just brought it all in and used all of it.
Yeah. Then it also, again, it speaks to the professors that I had and my parents and friends and other people, just support in general for any and all. To your question about the classics versus more contemporary stuff, music world, yeah, to use your word, absolutely is ripe for all of it. Certainly in contemporary music of all kinds, whether it's pop or rock or jazz or hip hop or orchestral or acoustic synthesized, all of it. There's a lot of variety and there's a lot of overlap. I think more now and there will continue to be, I'm sure, into the future, which is always great. And I know of a lot of composers and conductors too who are around my age, maybe a little older, who also have a lot of interests and are writing works and are programming works and conducting works that are pieces and songs and all the rest of it that are influenced and all of it with everything. So it's great to see and watch and experience.
One of your most incredible skills to me, because of this probably, is you can sit down at your beautiful piano and take a song. So like at Christmas you'll do this and you'll take a song, but then do it in 10 different styles of composers or time periods or modes, or it's just incredible to me. What do you do when you do that? Do you just like take some like basic rules? Do you think of a song that you're mimicking? Do you play more with the kind of accents? What do you lean into the most whenever you're switching between modes like that so quickly?
It's a great question. My experience is such, and my interest is such that there's a lot that I sort of take in consciously or not. And it's happened over the last, basically 38 years. Point being, a lot of it, it's not terribly a conscious thing.
Great, so you just lean on the unconscious rules that you've built over the years.
Things that I've learned, and it's things that I've gleaned, and it's there's a split second of thought to switch gears into whatever style or genre or what have you, and I don't mean that with any sort of arrogance at all. It's just.
Oh, no. I just wondered if it was more conscious or more subconscious, which is cool. So it's more that you have those modes built into your head. You know what they are. Right. You just have to kind of put the clutch down and shift into the different gear.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I love it. And I think that's one of the things that makes you so rich as a musician is you are so easily able, like you have this really, really strong technical base, but you're so easily able to swim in varied waters so quickly.
Thanks. I have fun, and I mean, of course, if I thought about it more in the moment, things would be better crafted. But it's, those kind of things, like you said, at Christmas, and it's just fun party things to do, and just have a good time. So people seem to enjoy it, and so. Yeah, it's great.
So I think one cool way that you use those skills is you are really great when you're composing for film. You're really great at matching the art where it is and writing music that really serves the art. It's not...
Right.
I've never looked at your body of work and thought, oh, everything sounds like you. I think you serve the project so humbly that it still sounds like you and it has your flair, but it really, really, truly serves whatever the creator's vision is, which is incredible. What are some projects that you've loved working on? And it might just be like the style of composition or how you got to work or who you got to work with? What's something that you've enjoyed working on as from the composition side?
I mean, I've enjoyed everything that I've had the good fortune to work on, and I mean that genuinely. But if I were to pick something or specific things, well, there's a project that I'm working on right now. It's a short film, and to your point about different styles and things like that, this particular film has elements of fantasy and more kind of contemporary sci-fi, science fiction, and a few others. So that's just all in one package, a great way for me and a fun way for me to transition and morph. So that's nice. I think it was 2 episodes of a web series that a friend of mine created and starred in and produced. Yeah, I think there were only 2 that were made. And that was fun because I got to write a whole piece for that. And the nice thing with the second episode was that I got to take parts of the first episode and add more to it. So there became this kind of in the traditional vein of assigning musical identification to characters and locations and stuff. That was fun to kind of recall themes that we'd used in the first episode for this character or that idea or whatever, and add new things that would hopefully wed well to the earlier material. So that was a nice, fun experience. Yeah.
That's so cool. Do you mostly find yourself getting composition projects through friends and network, or is that something that you go to job sites for? I don't actually know how one gets composition jobs.
I mean, I think like most things or like a lot of things, certainly in the film and television business, it's a lot of it's word of mouth and who you know. Mm-hmm. I can count on, I think, one hand the projects that I've gotten through seeking them out or that sort of thing, advertising my work in that way. Mm. Everything else has been random, seemingly random connections and things like that.
Yeah.
There was one project I worked on where it was someone who I had worked, was a colleague of mine in music, but in a completely separate area outside of Hollywood. And we hadn't spoken in, I think, a number of years, and she called me and said, "Hey, you still write music? You want to do a thing?" And I said, "Absolutely." So it's things like that. It's that goes to, you never know who you're going to meet and all that stuff. But just networking and I think it's all about who you know. And I'm grateful for the people who recommend me.
Yeah, and you're also, I think you're a great example of, I've never felt like I was networking with you. Like, you're just genuine, and you're not ever trying to, I mean, if you are trying to manipulate us all, then you are a master, and
I am just
and you
that
won. You're just
talented.
that good.
It's true. It's true.
The one way you did manipulate me.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh no.
The reason we're friends.
Oh, that was nothing to do with music at all.
I know, but I love it. It's like we're
brilliant.
Dear friends because you're an excellent baker.
I like to bake, yes. That's very true.
And so you were the one that would always bring in cupcakes and muffins, and they were delicious. And I actually remember saying, "Who made these? I'm going to be friends with this person." And I tracked you down. And the rest is history.
It's the best.
So you never know.
It's very true.
Do you find any correlations between baking and music?
Yeah, there are certainly similarities, absolutely. Baking is creative, probably in a similar way. It's interesting with baking because baking, as opposed to cooking, is a bit more of a scientific process with leavening agents and gluten and yeast and all the rest of it, butter, sugar, flour, cream, everything. So there's a craft to it, and you're assembling ingredients and assembling pieces of it, like you might arrange or compose or orchestrate. And those are all three different things, but the basic idea, you have a cake. Okay, you're going to fill it with something. Great. What are you going to fill it with? What filling goes with this cake layer, and what frosting or icing or glaze or what have you? And that's, for me, that's what's fun, is to just play around with it and experiment with new flavors and combinations and see what happens, and just make a mess in the kitchen and clean it later.
I've always thought you as a baker have lived in a similar space to you as a musician. Of you have this really excellent technical base, but then you're great at bringing in your creative flair on top of that.
Thanks. It's all essentially, it's all self-taught. I did a lot of baking with my parents when I was a kid, but after a certain point, I think if you make enough cupcakes on a basic level, you sort of figure out what works and what doesn't work. That becomes a question of, okay, cool, how are you going to flavor it? Are you going to tweak it? Do you want to make it more dense or more fluffy or whatever? And there's experiment and...
Do you feel that way with music too? Of like at a basic level, like I'm going to be able to play a song well, and so now I can play around with it, or do you think of it differently?
In the moment when I'm baking or when I'm working in music, I don't really think of it in those terms. I say that kind of as reflecting on it outside of the moment. But I think for both baking and music, it's I sit down or go in the kitchen to do it, and then I just kind of dive in and see what happens. And I don't really I don't worry about it. I don't really get in my head about it.
I'm going to pause you there. I admire that and do not share that most of the time.
Sure. I know that it's rare. I have a lot of artist friends who are like, what?
Yeah. Do you think it's because you just kind of put the hours in and you trust it and you move on and you're present, or is that just like part of how you're built, or what? Or do you make it as a conscious choice? What do you think?
It's not a conscious choice. There is.
So you don't overthink about overthinking, basically?
What?
How dare you?
It's ridiculous. If you were to dissect it, there might be some correlation between the amount of hours and the lack of consciousness. I'm not sure, but I do know that I'm fortunately for myself that I'm wired in a way that is that makes me relaxed and fairly easygoing and not easily stressed. So, or I don't allow things to easily stress me out.
Yeah, that's great, and I think that serves you in so many ways. And it also makes you a leavening agent as an artist in the room, as a collaborator. You're very calming influence, which I think brings out the best in a lot of people.
I think so. It's certainly helpful, and I'm also the kind of person who, if there is sort of tension, I will gauge it in the moment and either try to help or kind of step back and let it dissipate, or whatever I feel that might need in that moment. So but yeah, I think I also I do think I collaborate well because of my personality, which I guess just makes it less likely that there will be tension and stress and whatever else. So
you do a lot of collaborations. You do a lot of leadership, and you do a lot of education, and then you also do kind of like individual contributor. So like you might be a musician in a pit, you might be the conductor of that pit, you might be composing and kind of collaborating with a creative team.
Sure.
You do so many things. Do you have a favorite, or do you like moving between them the most?
Composing is probably my favorite.
Okay.
There's something about the expression and the connection and the energy, I suppose you might say, that is unique, I think, to that area for me personally. For others, it is not. But they're all, that's what I get out of composing, and what I give out of composing is different than what I give and get as a music director or conductor, whatever. And it's all different. The nice thing is that it's a variety, and there's 1,000 different ways to connect and share and work with people. But composing, there's something, I think, just because it's innate and it's from somewhere deep in a way, again, for me, that is unique to that is not, does not occur often elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I gave you a magic wand and you could have any project, would it be composing? Or what would it be? What would the project be?
Yeah, I think it would be composing. It would be, there's a few kind of dream projects in music that I would love to do. Composing would probably be the top of the list, yeah. To write a large score and conduct it and all of that.
Do you think it would be for film or TV?
There's something about film that is really it's appealing, and I think because it's a larger story, purely just numerically in terms of the time. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5, maybe more story, and there's a lot of ways to develop within that and tell a whole singular story, musically and narrative, and all the great ways that music and film interact that you don't get in the same way with episodic television.
Okay, so right now, one of the things you're composing is a musical project based on the old TV show Murder, She Wrote.
Yes.
Tell me everything.
So that project started, I think it was 10 years ago this year. I think it was 2013. So my friend Aaron and I got together one night, one evening, and we decided we somehow came up with this idea of writing a musical based on Murder, She Wrote, and it was a thing that we did, and we stayed up until I think it was like 3 a.m. coming up with this ridiculous story. We wrote a goofy little outline that had references to 1,000 other musical theater productions and songs and everything, and other Angela Lansbury references and things like that. And I think the next day I sort of sat down and wrote this kind of overture based on nothing that I had written, because we hadn't written anything, but the overture based on the theme from the TV show, written by John Adams. And I just sort of wrote this silly thing and sent it off, and I said, hey, I wrote an overture, and Aaron said, oh, we're doing this. And I said, are we? And so we basically just said, okay, well, let's do a thing. So over the 10 years, very slowly, we ended up writing, I don't know, 10 or maybe 10 or 12, maybe 15 songs. And at some point we got together with our friend Courtney and said, hi, you're a writer of actual things that neither of which Aaron and I are. Do you have any interest in writing the book for our show? And she agreed. And the thing with Courtney is that she has fantastic knowledge of 80s and 90s, all things just television across the decades, but particularly I think kind of older television. It's an interest, I think, of hers, and Just in general, things that are a bit more theatrical and campy in a good way. Aaron loves all things theater, and I'm a huge fan of a lot of composers' works and all of that. So together, it's been a fun trip. We finished a first draft of the whole thing in I think early 2020, and then when everything happened with COVID, we did a reading of it over Zoom with a few actors. We got a few actor friends together to read parts and a couple other friends to give notes and feedback, all that stuff. So that was what we did with it, and we sort of, I think, left it alone for a minute, not particularly by any choice. I think we just got busy with our own lives. And then we decided to get back into it. So it's been a few months now, I think, of meetings and feedback from other friends and watching a lot of episodes of the TV show, and it's been a lot of adjusting of the structure and the format and just the story itself of our story. Yeah, so our lyricist is Aaron Fagundis, and our book writer is Courtney Potter. And so, yeah, it's been a fun transition into the second draft, if you will, of it. It's getting better, I think, on all fronts. Certainly for me, musically, the initial concept was that every song was going to basically be an homage to another song, much in the way that the Book of Mormon did with a bunch of things, a little bit with Avenue Q as well, and certainly with things like Schmigadoon and other projects. And it's now sort of morphed into something that's a bit more original, which is fun to do in a different way. And it's been a lot of fun. So we're hoping to have a finished version, the second draft, by next spring, and we're going to look into the Hollywood Film Fringe Festival.
So you would do like not a reading, but like a live.
I mean, theoretically, ideally.
Initial production.
I was going to say theoretically, just a simple reading of it, but depending on where we're at and what we want and are able to do, sure, yeah.
Cool.
See what happens, yeah.
That's exciting.
And it's great because it's a fun project to do on the side and in our free time. And Aaron and I have been fairly diligent about getting together almost once a week to work on things, which it's good. Having that regularity and that discipline is helpful to finish it.
Right, because it's hard to sustain something that big that is self-driven over years at this point. Yeah. So has anything else helped other than regular meetings to help keep you on track and keep things moving?
I think that's it. Every time we get together, we schedule the next meeting. And I think we're both pretty interested in finishing this version.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about the process with the three of us, with Aaron, Courtney, and me, is that we'll, all of us have plenty of things to do on our own. We sort of know what Courtney needs and wants to do, and Aaron and I have what we need to do, and the three of us will also get together and chat and every so often, either in person or over Zoom. So it's been a good, smooth process so far. So yeah, it's great.
Nice. I look forward to hearing the next version.
Me too. Thanks.
Okay, so you're working on composing that musical. You're working on a short film, the sci-fi fantasy that we talked about. You're always working on projects for friends. I've roped you into short films and a hip-hop rap 90s music video.
One of the most random calls I've ever gotten, and I'm so happy I did.
It was delightful.
It was great. That was so much
fantastic. We've worked on cabarets together. you're making music for a podcast.
What?
What?
No.
And then during the days, you're also in charge of a department at USC. You are playing the piano, you're teaching music lessons, you're music directing places.
Yeah.
You have so many applications of this talent and craft of music. I want to come back to what's that musical essence that you have in you, and how does that come out in your day-to-day life, and also how does that pull you through the years to stay creative and stay artistic?
For me, there isn't a distinction between the day-to-day and the yearly barometer. It's a constant way of being, I think, as a musician for me. It's there's no beginning and there's no end. It's a constant stream, if you will. For me, it's music is, because I'm a musician, music is a way for me to connect, and also just with my own personality, music is a way for me to connect with people and to share and to express things on a deeper level than I would normally be able to do with something else. Yeah, and it manifests in different ways, again, like you said, whether I'm teaching or I'm writing or music directing or what have you. So it's, yeah, that's what it is. That's what brought us together, despite my love of baked goods and despite your enjoyment of cupcakes. The reason I was in that room was because of music, right? That's the intangible, yeah, that's what's in I don't have blood in my veins. I have family and friends back east that say I've got music in my veins, and I think it's a lovely sentiment, and I think, frankly, it's probably true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so music is a powerful, amazing gift to our humanity. And the lovely thing about it is that there are 1,000 different genres and styles and ways of connecting and communicating with music, with ourselves, with other people, with other cultures, and the world, and beyond. It's so, yeah, it is who I am.
I love that. So I like to ask all of my guests to give my audience a creative challenge. So this is something where they could go from 0 to 1, create something from nothing, or do something that kind of gets them out of their comfort zone creatively in the realm of your expertise. So if someone considers themselves a musician, or if they love music but they don't yet identify as a musician, first of all, I know you are passionate about this. So what would you say to them, identity-wise, as a musician? And also, what is your challenge? What do you challenge them to do?
So yeah, to your point about identity, if you express yourself in any way through music, you're a musician.
I love that. If you express yourself in any way through music, you're a musician.
Yep.
Don't worry about if you've been paid for
Full
it.
stop.
Don't worry about your training.
Correct.
Don't worry about what anybody else says.
Right.
If you express yourself through music, you're a musician.
Full stop. Regardless of any of those things.
Love that.
That's it. Yep. The challenge. I would, to use that word, challenge people to connect. To connect with something deep within themselves, whether they can put a name to it or express it, or explain it, or not, in some way. Pick your favorite song, pick your favorite piece of music, pick a small little section of it, and learn how to play it on the piano. Sing it. Dance it. The thing with each of those things is if you're learning how to play on the piano, there's no filter. It's you and your fingers and the keys. That's it. If you're singing it, get together with a friend, have them play it on the piano for you, or accompany you on the guitar, or get a backing track online somewhere. With singing, that's the most organic way to express yourself as a musician because there's no filter. There's nothing. It's literally your body, your voice. You're not playing an instrument. You're not doing anything else. Dance is probably the second best. There's no verbal expression, but there's a purely physical one. There's nothing that you're going through. You're not working through a pencil and paper or a piano or anything else. Dance it out, sing it out, play it out, and again, it goes back to connecting with something within yourself and expressing something. You don't have to know what that thing is, but as long as you are connecting, you will get something out of it. And it doesn't have to be anything deep or profound or anything prophetic. It is anything and everything. It's whatever you want it to be.
And you're practicing that skill of accessing what's going on inside, connecting the music and the physicality and the emotion.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to put it into words. That's the whole point.
Right. That's why music is music and it's not words because there's, right. That would be my challenge. And if you get something out of it that you can name, great. If you don't, that's also great. But you're connecting. And as long as it's compelling, which it will be, because of what it is, we're all better for it, right? There's something deeper there. There's an expression there. There's a way to... It's like if you're going to a concert or you're going to a movie in a movie theater, you're connecting with other people, you're expressing something, you're feeling something. There's emotional connectivity and sparks, all of it that happen. Yeah.
I love it. So if you do this, the challenge is to take a phrase of music, sing it, play it on the piano, or dance
or
to
an
it.
Instrument. Yep.
Or in an instrument, so that you connect that physicality with the emotion with the music.
Right. There's a physical from within any one of the three options. Yep.
I love it. And then if you do that, put it on the Facebook group or on Creators Cafe on Instagram, and I'll link those all in the show notes.
Beautiful.
It's actually Instagram at Creators Cafe by Kika Labs. So that's there.
Great.
How can people follow you and connect with you? So I know all of your music is on your website, which I'll connect in the show notes.
Yes.
Do you have an Instagram you would suggest?
Yep. Kyle DET Music. That's my Instagram handle. That's where I post and other people tag me in posts that have to do with composing or music directing or teaching or playing or other stuff. There's a couple others, a piano Instagram and TikTok account that I have that's just me playing, making random medleys out of pop songs and show tunes and all the rest of it that you can see. But Kyle DET Music is the, shall we say, main one.
Okay, perfect.
So.
And do you have any last thoughts or wishes or things for the audience to think about? I think you started to touch on it with that, like connecting and the sparks of enjoying music. Yeah.
That's, at the end of the day, creativity can be found in anything, whether it's quote unquote traditional avenues like music or dance or acting or painting or drawing or anything else. There's creativity to be found in every walk of life. That being said, the idea of doing something for fun, and I'll say just for the sake of our conversation, for me as a musician, playing an instrument, learning how to play an instrument, learning how to sing, learning how to do anything. And doesn't mean you have to take lessons. That can mean you can just self-taught, just expressing yourself and having something that you do for fun that is a creative outlet is so fantastic and worthwhile. You don't have to be good at it, whatever good means. That's a whole other conversation. But, doing something for fun that's it. That's all you need to do. As long as you enjoy it and it's compelling and you find joy in it, great. Life is too short to think that you have to be good at something to be able to do it, or to do it well, that it's not worth doing. Absolutely untrue. Mm-hmm. You know, you're a musician again. You're a musician because you say you're a musician. Period. Yeah. Great.
Do it because you make art and create and do music because you enjoy it.
Right. Absolutely.
I love it. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure.
I adore you.
I adore you too.
Thank you for talking with me.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Join the community and share your creative challenges on Instagram and Facebook at Creators Cafe by Kika Labs. And also check out my website, kikalabs.com, KIKALABS.com, to sign up for the mailing list so you always know when a new podcast is released, and to check out my coaching and digital courses to help you be a more confident and joyful creator.